Ever wanted to play Dungeons & Dragons but never had any friends to play with you? Or maybe you didn't own Dungeons & Dragons. Or maybe you didn't even have friends in the first place. Well, not to worry, because Knights of Pen and Paper is the perfect substitute for it. In this game, you are playing both the Dungeon Master and the Adventurers in an attempt to stop the evil Black Wizard from taking over the world, as well as doing quests to help the people of this world, and destroying monsters both epic and hilarious. Here's what I like about the game. Being the Dungeon Master. What does that mean? Well, if you aren't familiar with Dungeons & Dragons, the DM, or Dungeon Master, is responsible for making, well, everything. This includes coming up with quests for your adventures, as well as what monsters will encounter you on said quest. And that's just to name a few things the DM can do. Although admittedly, you don't have total control over everything that happens in this game, such as making monsters and quests. You do have control over what monsters will appear on your travels, as well as how many will appear, unless you make a bad roll when traveling. But that's the only instance of random monster appearances, besides the occasional forced fights that come with going through the main story. You are also able to select what quests you want your adventurers to go on, from a collection quest to killing monsters, and the game won't force you to follow the story, so you are free to travel and basically do whatever you want until you are ready to do the main story. The only thing the DM doesn't have control over is the type of characters the player makes, which brings me to the second thing I like about this game. Customizable party. In this game, you start off with one person, and as you go through the story, you will be able to purchase more players, up to a total of 5 adventurers. Not only that, but you have total control over what person is there and what class they are playing. For example, the bully has +1 to attack, so I might have him play as the thief, or the warrior. You are also able to purchase players too, like the pizza guy for example. And while we're on the subject of purchasing players, some of you might think it's stupid that you have to wait until you can afford to have access to a full team. But you have to remember that most RPGs have you wait until most of the game is finished before you have access to a full party. But half the fun of it is making the most with what you have and strategizing accordingly. Like picking the thief as your first class because he deals enough damage to survive most of his fights. Or picking the warrior because he is able to outlast the monsters with his insane health and defense. No rule lawyers. To anyone who has played Dungeons & Dragons, you know exactly who these people are. And for those of you who are lucky enough to have never experienced the horror of rule lawyers, they act something like this. Okay, I twin cast fire spell to kill the demon. You can't do that, you already used all your sorcery spells. I didn't use all my sorcery points, but he's an interdimensional demon, your spells wouldn't hit him anyway. It says right here in the frickin' book that's clearly that I can cast that sorcery spells if I exchange spell harm in a dimensional demon. I don't care that he's an interdimensional spells. I can do whatever the heck I want because humor and references. One of my favorite things to do is find all the little references that they put into this game. Everything from the stages to the enemies has a little loving reference to the old video game and cartoon culture. One of my favorites being the Missing No enemy. Mostly because one of my favorite games to play growing up was the first generation of Pokemon. And I can't tell you how many times I exploited the Missing No glitch to get infinite rare candies. Of course, there are some other ones I find pretty funny, like the Karate Rat and Yogi. I'm sorry. That one makes me laugh. Yoga. Other than the references, this game is full of typical nerd humor and dialogue that you would get from your normal session of Dungeons & Dragons. I can't tell you how many times I started laughing while playing this game, because some of the things the characters talked about were exactly what me and my friends would talk about while playing Dungeons & Dragons. Now that I've told you some good things about the game, here's some of what I didn't like. Too much grinding. I feel like this game requires you to grind just a little bit too much. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like fighting monsters and getting rewards from defeating them, but you absolutely need to have certain gear to beat the game, or at least be at a high enough level to where you can survive the enemy's turn. I beat the game when my characters were around level 30, but it took me hours to get to that level, and you have to have money to properly equip your team for the final boss. Some of the classes feel useless later in the game. This one may be just a personal gripe of mine, but it felt like some of the classes, like the Paladin and the Druid, just weren't as useful as the other classes later on. I really wanted to use the Paladin, but I just couldn't find use for him on my team. But, like I said, this could all just be me. Maybe some of you have had a paladin in your class and did just fine in the game. Other than those two examples, I had a lot of fun with this game, and I would recommend it to anyone. And for it only costing $10 on Steam, I think this game is well worth the price. I've also heard that the sequel to this game is coming out this month, so I will definitely have to check it out. But I'll save that for another video. But until next time, see you later. Hey guys, this was my first review, so I'm looking for some criticism. Hopefully I'll have another review up very soon, so if you like what I do and want to watch more of it, like and subscribe. And if you have some suggestions for a game to review, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.